Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, Doktor.
Dapat dah? Dapat tak presentation? Kalau saya share ni ada ke tak?
Tadi Doktor email saya tak ada slide pun, Doktor.
Tak ada slide pula dah. Kalau saya try
Tadi
share
tadi Doktor share tadi macam boleh nampak.
Ya. Sekejap Saya try share sekali lagi. Yang ni nampak ke?
Nampak, Doktor.
Dah nampak dah?
Nampak dah.
Okay, so kita start lah Okay, Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon and selamat berpuasa, selamat Ramadan to all my beloved student. So today kita akan cerita pasal glaucoma, one of the important topics and common topics in ophthalmology posting. So if you have any question, you can always ask during the presentation ataupun at the end of the presentation. It's okay if you want to stop me in the middle of the presentation pun tak apa. Okay, so basically glaucoma is one of the most common irreversible blindness in the world. Kita ada reversible blindness and also irreversible blindness. For example, in the case of reversible blindness, macam contoh dia cataract, and then kita ada refractive error is also included into the reversible blindness. And irreversible blindness contohnya macam glaucoma, age-related macular degeneration, myopic maculopathy, dan banyak lagi lah disease yang akan menyebabkan kebutaan sepenuhnya. So before you go deeper into the glaucoma, first you need to understand the anatomy. You need to remember the anatomy lah. The most important anatomy in glaucoma is the angle. Angle ni dekat mana? Dekat antara beneath the limbus, limbus area tu. Limbus tu kat mana? Limbus tu is a junction between the cornea and the sclera. So beneath the limbus tu dia ada structure lah. Structure yang kita panggil angle. So dekat sana adanya structure ataupun komponen yang produce this aqueous humor, as well as the component that absorb balik aqueous humor from the anterior chamber. So if you look at this photo, you can see mana tak kesal tak keluar. Okay, nampak ke sini? So basically behind here at the posterior part is the where the aqueous is produced. So the most important structure here is actually the ciliary epithelium. Ciliary epithelium ni lah function dia untuk produce the aqueous humor, and this aqueous humor will be collected at the posterior chamber, and before it flows through the pupil to the anterior chamber. So from the anterior chamber, dia akan reabsorb back into the circulation. Circulation tu means the blood vessel lah. So dekat mana? Dekat the trabecular meshwork. So the trabecular meshwork yang you nampak ni, this is the trabecular meshwork. It's actually composed of 3 layers. So there are 3 layers with different resistant punya level. So the deeper the trabecular meshwork, which is the third layer, trabecular meshwork tu dia punya resistance dia lagi tinggi lah. So macam dia kena go through a pressure gradient from the less resistant to the higher resistant. what is the function. So from the name tu pun you dah tahu, you know that trabecular meshwork is actually the structure itself appears like a mesh ataupun like a sponge. So the main the function of the trabecular meshwork is actually it serve as a filter lah, macam filter kat rumah you kan, filter air. So it's about the same. So it prevent the molecules from passing through lah. So here is the diagram showing you that the flow of the aqueous from the ciliary epithelium at the behind the iris, and then at the posterior chamber, go through the pupils to the anterior chamber, and again reabsorb into the circulation through the trabecular meshwork and into the Schlemm canal. Schlemm canal, and it goes back to the all the conjunctival and scleral vein before joining the bigger vessels or bigger vein. So basically the absorption of the aqueous humor ni ataupun aqueous humor outflow is composed of two pathways, the conventional pathway and also the unconventional pathway. The conventional pathway is actually through the trabecular meshwork, which actually account for about 70% of the aqueous humor outflow, as compared to the unconventional pathway, which account for about 20 to 30% of aqueous humor outflow lah, from the anterior chamber. So dekat mana yang unconventional tu? Yang unconventional tu dia aqueous humor tu akan di reabsorb by the iris, by the cornea, by the lens into the suprachoroidal space, into the into the choroid, directly into the choroid. So this is the unconventional pathway. But the 70% is actually go through the conventional pathway, which is the trabecular meshwork. So what is intraocular pressure? Semua dengar kan?
Dengar doktor.
Okay, I'm just checking, takut kan senyap je. Okay, so basically intraocular pressure is actually fluid pressure inside the eye. Sama juga macam if you put pressure inside your tire kan, car tire ke, motorcycle tire ke. So you put a volume, which is the air. But inside the eye is actually the fluid, the aqueous. So the aqueous is actually causing this eyeball to have a pressure, and this pressure is important to maintain the eyeball shape. Untuk eyeball punya shape lah. So the normal range of the IOP is between 10 to 21. Kenapa dia ada range? It's not fixed because the production and the outflow is not constant. So it may change depending on several factors lah. Later on kita akan discuss. So that's why it range from 10 to 21. This is the normal range of IOP. What are factors that determine the IOP level is actually the rate of aqueous humor production. And you know that the dua je kan, benda masuk, benda keluar. So the rate of aqueous humor production and also the resistance to the outflow of the aqueous humor from the anterior chamber. The level of episcleral venous pressure also included in the resistance to the aqueous humor outflow lah. So basically dia yang masuk dan yang keluar tu kena sama, dan dia akan constant, the pressure akan constant ataupun consistent. But if the production and the outflow is not constant, it change, so it will affect the level of IOP. If the production is more, then the IOP will increase. If the outflow is less, then the IOP also increase. So yeah, and increases IOP is actually most of the time is caused by the increased resistance of aqueous humor outflow. Macam tu lah. Sebabnya if you imagine machine kan, kalau dia rosak kan, dia usually production dia punya capacity untuk function tu akan jadi kurang. Dia tak adalah jadi lebih efektif kan untuk keluarkan lebih produk. So macam itulah juga jarang is quite rare for the ciliary epithelium suddenly disturb and produce more aqueous. It's more easier for the aqueous humor outflow tu, the system, the trabecular meshwork tu rosak dan menyebabkan the outflow tu jadi less effective. Macam itulah. So there are factors that influence the IOP, factors that increase the IOP as well as the factors that reduce the IOP. So factors that may increase IOP include elevated episcleral venous pressure, for example, Valsalva maneuver, breath holding, if you tahan nafas, playing a wind instrument like trumpet, saxophone, wearing a tight collar lah ataupun tight necktie yang ketat, so it macam compress your vein, then bending over supine, elevated central venous pressure, intubation. So all these will elevate the episcleral venous pressure, hence increase the episcleral venous pressure and increase in the outflow resistance. So that's why the IOP increase. Pressure on the eye, for example, blepharospasm. Blepharospasm is a condition where you have this blepharo means the muscle around the eye lah. So there is involuntary twitching of the muscles. So because of this involuntary twitching or basically contraction, it compress the eyeball, so it will increase the eye pressure as well. Squeezing and crying also increase the IOP. So that's why if you are measuring the IOP in very anxious patients, yang asyik nak tutup mata, ataupun in a small children who are crying ataupun dia akan resist the examination, you will tend to get a higher IOP than expected lah. Elevated body temperature, increased aqueous humor production, hormone influence such as hypothyroidism, thyroid ophthalmitis, drugs. The most important drugs there is actually corticosteroids. So because corticosteroids is a common drug that widely available in the market. For example, it's not only like drugs like prednisolone where you get from the pharmacy, but you can also have this corticosteroid or steroids in all other products, in daily products. For example, a lot of jamus, a lot of coffees, coffee misai kucing lah, coffee all sort of coffee ni kan, coffee tongkat ali lah. And then in a cosmetic product also sometimes you have all these supplements. Sometimes they put steroid inside. Some of the supplement, if you consume, then you feel like energized. So some maybe they put steroid inside the supplement. So if you consume this product for a long time, then it will increase the steroid level inside your body, and it will cause this high IOP. So be careful. In one of the situation is actually where these GPs they give eye drops in a patient who come with eye complaint or ear complaint. For example, ear itchiness, ear redness, ear disturbance ataupun eye redness. So they give this one medication, which is the Neodeca. Neodeca is actually a neomycin, which is the antibiotic combined with dexamethasone, which is steroid. It's quite powerful drugs. Definitely, when you give that medication, the symptoms resolve, the signs resolve. But what usually GPs only prescribe it for like about 1 week, but patient keep the medication in the house, in the fridge, and they keep on using that every time they feel discomfort ataupun rasa tak best in dekat dia punya mata ataupun telinga. So they will then buy that medication over the counter, and then they keep on using that without realizing that there is a danger in the long-term usage of the medication. Ketamine is an anesthetic agent, which is the one of the important anesthetic agent, and if you will learn this during your NS posting later on. Most of the anesthetic agent will cause the IOP to be low, but except ketamine, which can cause the IOP to be high. So, but usually nowadays, most of the anesthesiologists knows that when we are doing an eye cases or eye surgery, they will try to avoid ketamine. And these are factors that may decrease the IOP, which is the aerobic exercise, anesthetic agent, as I mentioned before, metabolic or respiratory acidosis, which also will decrease the echosuema production, hormonal influences, for example, in the case of pregnancy, where there's hormonal changes in your body, drugs, alcohol, heroin, and cannabis. So what is glaucoma? Basically, glaucoma is actually not a single disease, not like a specific one disease, but it is actually a group of diseases that have a common characteristic of optic neuropathy associated with the visual function loss. So elevated IOP is one of the risk factors. That's why it's not included in the definition. Regardless if your IOP is high or low, it doesn't determine whether that patient have glaucoma or not, because the glaucoma, if you look at the first sentence, it is the optic neuropathy with visual function loss when we can label patient to have glaucoma, not necessarily the IOP. IOP is high IOP is actually one of the risk factor, important risk factor. Why? I will explain later. So how you classify glaucoma? It can be classified anatomically, which is whether it's open angle or closed angle. Etiology, primary or secondary. Primary, as you know, primary there's no apparent cause, and secondary is actually glaucoma caused by other diseases. Congenitals, when the developmental of trabecular meshwork is not well formed, means that it happens since birth, and acquired when you have the glaucoma at a later stage of your life. So when you have this glaucoma patient, you suspect this patient to have glaucoma, what you need to do? So basically there are 4 important examinations that you need to do. First one, you need to check the IOP, the intraocular pressure. You need to do a gonioscopy examination, because you want to determine whether it is an angle, open angle or closed angle. And then you look at the optic disc changes, because that is the only part of the optic nerve that you can see, because you want to see whether there's any changes in the optic disc, which also indicate optic nerve damage. And then you assess the visual field in which is the function of the optic nerve. So these are the instruments that we use in our clinic to assess the intraocular pressure. For those who have gone through ophthalmology posting, so they will have this, they can see this instrument, which is the Goldmann tonometer. Usually it is attached to the slit lamp machine. And the photo below actually is what the doctor sees through the slit lamp. So we also have the tonopen in a patient where they cannot sit on the at the slit lamp, ataupun bed-bound patient, or in a case where the cornea surface is not regular. For example, in the case of a patient with corneal ulcers ataupun any corneal deformity. So that's how we took the intraocular pressure. That is the below photo is actually shows methods to also measure the IOP, but it's rarely used now lah. This is the machine that you saw in our clinic, which is the air path tonometer. It used the technology of shooting an air through the cornea. So it tried to flatten the cornea. The amount of the pressure that they exert to the cornea is actually the pressure of the eyeball. So this is the gonioscopy. If you look at the photo up there, it's actually the gonioscopy mirror. There are a few types of mirror. We have 4 mirror, 3 mirror, 1 mirror. It doesn't matter as long as you can see the angle. You have 4 mirror is easier because you don't have to rotate the mirror. If 1 mirror or 3 mirror, you need to rotate the mirror to look at all 4 angles: the superior, inferior, nasal, and temporal. So if you have 4 mirror, it's easier. So actually, it used to determine whether the angle is open or closed because you want to see the trabecular meshwork. If you cannot see the trabecular meshwork, it indicates that the angle is closed. As long as you can see the trabecular meshwork, the angle is open. And also you want to see whether there's any other pathological findings such as anterior recession, peripheral anterior synechial. Synechial means that the iris is actually opposed to the cornea and it blocks the trabecular meshwork. Or sometimes you can also see new vessel at angle. There's new vessels growing at the angle area, or sometimes on top of the trabecular meshworks. So especially in the case of neovascular glaucoma, secondary to diabetes, central retinal vein occlusion, or ocular ischemic syndrome. So this is the gonioscopy. This is the grading. What structure that we want to look for at the angle. There are 4 structures: ciliary body, scleral spur, trabecular meshwork, Schwalbe line. The posterior most part structure is actually ciliary body, and the anterior most is the Schwalbe line. So basically, trabecular meshwork is second anterior. As long as you can see the trabecular meshwork, consider open angle. If you can see ciliary body, definitely you can see the trabecular meshwork. If you can see scleral spur, definitely you can see trabecular meshwork. But if you can see Schwalbe line and you cannot see other structure beyond it, so it is considered close angle. So that's actually the photo that shows the SL is Schwalbe line. Below that, trabecular meshwork, which is a bit pigmented, and after that you can see a white line in between the gray, the brown structure, which is the SS scleral spur, and CBB is the ciliary body, which is the posterior most part of the angle structure. So if you look here, this is open. This is still considered open because you still can see the scleral spur. This is still considered open because you can see the trabecular meshwork. This one is considered closed because you cannot see the trabecular meshwork, and this one also closed lah. Even the Schwalbe line you cannot see. So this is the mirror lah. So the central mirror. This is the 4 mirror at the side. So basically, it is a contralateral side. Now, if you see here, actually you are examining the angle of these sides. If you look here, this mirror, actually you are examining the angle of the other sides, same as the superior and inferior. So optic disc. Actually, when you have glaucoma, you must have this optic nerve damage, and the only parts of the optic nerve that you can see is actually the optic disc, which is the anterior most part of the optic nerve. So you look at the cupping, you look at the rim, you look at the margin, you look at the size, you look at the vessels. So these are the there will be a changes in the optic disc. So these are the normal optic disc. You can see this is the cup, the small cup. Here is actually the rim between the edge of the cup as well as the edge of the optic disc. That's the rim. What make up of the rim? What made the rim is actually the retinal nerve fiber layer. Retinal nerve fiber layer is actually from the retina that goes into the optic disc. So the optic cup is actually devoid of the retinal nerve fiber layer, and the vessels is actually emerge from the central part of the optic disc, and usually it is slightly toward the nasal sides of the optic cup. This is a comparison between the normal optic nerve and this is glaucomatous optic nerve. If you look here, the cup is big, it's almost 100%. So it's a cup disc ratio around 1.0. Ratio 1.0 means that the size of the cup is equal to the size of the nerve, optic disc. So it's 1.0. Here is around 0.3 or 0.4 because you're comparing the size of the cup to the size of the optic disc. Here you can no longer see the optic nerve rim, the neuroretinal rim. There's no more. Here actually you nampak yang the whitish part beyond surrounding the optic cup is actually the optic atrophy. Dia punya tu retinal nerve fiber atrophy. So basically it is just indicate that is actually not the retinal nerve fiber layer. So there's no more retinal nerve fiber layer. So this is very advanced glaucoma. And you look at the vessels here, the normal vessels appear from the center, but here there's no actually the immersion of the vessel has been pushed to the nasal part underneath. So dia macam bowl, macam ni. So nampak dia dah ke tepi. So this is the retinal nerve fiber layer ataupun the neuroretinal rim. As the glaucoma progress, it become thinner and thinner lah dekat advance. So you nampak this pores macam bulat-bulat bintik ni, actually it is the shadow from the lamina cribrosa, which is this part. It's actually a bony structure where the retinal nerve fiber layer tadi akan pass through this lamina cribrosa through the pores. So in when you have a healthy optic disc, you cannot see the shadow, but in advanced glaucoma you can see it. Here you can see it. So these are the changes of optic disc in glaucoma: generalized enlargement of the cup, focal enlargement of the cup, superficial sphincter hemorrhage, this sphincter hemorrhage, ataupun you can call it optic disc hemorrhage, thin neuroretinal rim, the vessels, asymmetry cupping between the two eyes, peripapillary atrophy. This is the peripapillary atrophy, just like now, the white part that I mentioned. So these are the changes. Bionating means that the vessels here dia macam putus, timbul balik dekat sini. Actually this part is underneath the optic surface. So these are also the changes. So OCT, what is OCT? OCT is is a machine that objectively measured the thickness of the neuroretinal rim. So last time when we don't have this machine, the damage is the percentage of damage ataupun how the doctors assess the damage of the optic nerve is through just a fundoscopy, and it is a subjective. But once you have this OCT machine, we can objectively measure the progressions of the thinning of the neuroretinal. So the color coding here indicates that the thickness of this part is much less compared to normal population. When the color is green, it is around the normal range. Yellow borderline, red is severe. So here is the comparison between the right and the left eye of one patient who have glaucoma in just one eye. You can see this the color coding. You see the island, which is red island. The blue is C, means that it's low. Red high. So now there's the color, red color has been reduced markedly compared to the other eye, which is still have a lot. Means that the neuroretinal rim still thick as compared to the other eye, which has become thin. And the color coding also shows that the red colors as compared to the green coding on the other eye. So what are visual field assessment? So the normal visual field in glaucoma, you can see these normal symptoms, normal signs of glaucoma. They got this visual field loss. You can have this visual field loss in all other conditions as well. But in glaucoma, the pattern of visual field loss is very specific. Usually it affects the periphery. So that's why most patients come late. Towards when the glaucoma progress and become advanced, and then it affects the central vision. It appears that like patient looking through a binocular ataupun through a tunnel, means that central they still can see clear, but the field tu dah reduce markedly. So if they are looking like they need to when they want to look right, they need to turn their head to the right because they need to turn their eye exactly to the right. The problem that usually patient has is they always, especially when driving, they don't realize there's a incoming car from a motorcycle from the side. So it's very dangerous for those who have advanced glaucoma to drive. So these are the definition: an IOL vision in the sea of darkness. Perimetry is the machine that used to assess the visual field. So these are the different types of perimetry. You don't have to know this. These are the changes lah. So you have general depression. Sekejap Hello. Dia pula scammer. Okay, tak apa. So generalized depression, paracentral scotoma. Paracentral scotoma means that the loss of vision to dekat central. Aquagerum, nasal steps. Nasal steps tu means dekat nasal part of the visual field tu dia hilang dulu lah. Altitudinal effects means that sama ada dia kat atas ataupun dekat bawah hilang dulu. Okay. So these are the changes of visual field defects progression from this one tahun bila ni over several years lah. So when early glaucoma, the visual field looks nice. This black spot is actually the indicates normal blind spots, our normal blind spot. So here you can see the progressions of the visual field changes. The black area here means that the area that the patient cannot see. And this is advanced when there's a more area which is patient cannot see. So this is the paracentral scotoma. I just want to show you the paracentral scotoma visual field effects. So the most common glaucoma, which is the primary open angle glaucoma, primary means that there's no secondary causes. So the progression sama lebih kurang macam tadi, chronic slow progressive optic neuropathy. So there are actually three three important points dalam definition dia. The first one is it is a chronic, slowly progressive optic neuropathy, means that they affect the optic nerve. The chronic, slow affect the optic nerve. And then the second point, with a characteristic patterns of optic nerve damage. So optic nerve damage tu dekat mana? Dekat optic disc tadi lah. Dia kena ada changes tu, and dia kena ada visual field loss, evidence of visual field loss ataupun visual field defect. So dia kena ada tiga-tiga ni baru kita boleh label dia as a glaucoma. So elevated IOP is an important risk factor together with other risk factor. Tapi kenapa IOP ni paling penting? Nanti kita ceritakan lepas ni. So other risk factor, yang important risk factor is race, decrease central corneal thickness, advanced age, positive family history. So basically, if you look here, there are the modifiable risk factor and as well as the non-modifiable risk factor. The only modifiable risk factor is the IOP lah. Benda lain ni semua you tak boleh tukar. So that's why IOP ni penting. So kita kena target the IOP. So nanti if you look at the management of glaucoma pun dia targeted the IOP. It's not yang benda lain ni dah tak boleh dah nak control. It's beyond our control. So IOP means IOP di normal range. Most patient with glaucoma dia akan ada fluctuation dia more than 10. Maknanya macam pagi you measure the IOP 10 ataupun 11, bila malam you tengok 25. So that suggests that the patient may have glaucoma because the fluctuations dia terlampau tinggi. Biasanya kalau fluctuation orang normal dia tak banyak, less than 6. So central corneal thickness, pun dia is a risk factor for glaucoma. So that's why sometimes in glaucoma patient ataupun suspect glaucoma, kita akan measure dia punya central corneal thickness. It's not only that the central corneal thickness is a risk factor for glaucoma, but it also affect the measurement of the IOP. Usually in thin cornea, kita akan underestimate dia punya IOP. When we measure the IOP, actually it is underestimate. It means that if you get the IOP of 15, the actual IOP will be maybe 20. It depends on how thin is the cornea lah. The thinner the cornea, the higher the underestimation. Kalau thicker cornea, dia akan overestimate. So if we measure the IOP is 20, so basically when the cornea is thick, like the actual IOP may be lower than that. So corneal curvature, and then these are the other risk factors. So if you look here, advanced age, you cannot control the risk factor ni. Sebab as you you akan aging kan, your age tu akan always bertambah. So in one of the studies, it shows that for those who are aging more than 60 years old, they are 7 times more likely to develop glaucoma than those who are younger than 40. Certain races are also prone to develop glaucoma. For example, black race. For example, black race, the prevalence is higher compared to the other races, African American ke ataupun Hispanic. Dia memang higher risk of developing glaucoma. Family history, if the parents have glaucoma, so dia punya kids tu, the risk of developing glaucoma is also higher. Among siblings also higher. Tapi kalau tak ada kena-mengena tu, tak adalah. Macam husband and wife, tak ada kena-mengena. Myopia, for those who are short-sighted, they also increase risk of develop glaucoma. Kenapa? Because the myopia tu kita punya bola mata tu jadi lebih panjang. That's why kita dapat short-sighted, because the focus point tu tak sampai ke macula. So you imagine when your eyeball is big, is bigger ataupun longer, the the eyeball tu akan stretch macam balloon lah. Balloon, kalau small balloon you rasa dia punya getah tu thick. When you blow some more, the balloon akan jadi lagi besar and the getah tu akan jadi lebih thin. So sama juga macam eyeball kita lah. So bila lebih thin, lebih nipis, it prone to damage or destruction by the damage by this because of the pressure effects. Diabetic, cardiovascular disease, retinal, this one because of the reduced, most probably because of the reduced oxygenations of the nerve lah. Jadi because of ischemia, and then they start to die off. So prognosis, most patients will retain useful vision for the entire life. However, treatment with medication, laser surgeries to reduce the IOP should significantly slow or halt the progression of the disease lah. That's what is actually our aim. So if you look here, medication, laser atau surgery, semuanya tend to lower the IOP. When the IOP is low, the progression to become slow, and then akan retain dia punya useful vision. Tu je kita punya management of glaucoma. Untuk reverse balik vision dia tak ada dah. Macam juga patient dah teruk advance glaucoma, nak reverse balik jadi macam normal tak ada dah. Whatever that dia ada masa tu, yang kita nak tahan. So these are the other definition. Glaucoma suspect when you have only one of the features, you don't the other criteria doesn't met. For example, dia ada optic disc cup to disc ratio dia besar, tapi IOP dia normal, dia punya visual field pun normal, angle dia pun open, tak ada nampak apa-apa. So kita call them glaucoma suspect saja. So kita akan monitor dia lah. Biasanya mungkin setahun atau 2 tahun sekali patient need to come for follow up, and we need to assess, because we never know. Because dia hanya ada satu tanda saja, but the other factor tu semua normal. Ocular hypertension in a patient with normal optic disc, cup disc ratio dia pun 0.3 normal je, visual field dia pun normal je, tapi dia punya IOP dia lebih daripada 21. So we call this patient ocular hypertension. So in this patient we need to monitor juga, because in one of the study it shows that 10% of patients with ocular hypertension they akan develop glaucoma in a later life. So that's why we need to monitor. Normal low tension glaucoma, ni yang macam tadi saya kata, patient yang ada optic disc changes, ada visual field defects, tapi dia punya IOP dia less than 21. So we call that normal or low tension. But because dia dah satisfy the definition of glaucoma, we call them glaucoma jugalah. So ni yang tadi saya terang tadilah. So sama je. So management of glaucoma divided into medical, lasers and surgery. The most important management is medical management, because this is the primary treatment that we offer to patient in the form of topical ataupun systemic. Biasanya topical dululah. So the later tu surgery, lasers tu it depends. It can be supplements to the medical management, ataupun it is being offered after the medical management fail, ataupun just before the surgery. The surgery tu trabeculectomy tu actually you make a passage ataupun a path, another path from the anterior chamber towards the subconjunctival space. So you buat another channel, sebabnya trabecular shock tu kan dah block, so you buat another pathway, another path. And also glaucoma drainage device ataupun glaucoma implant, yang itu untuk surgery. So the most important medical management is there are 4 groups of medication. The first one is prostaglandin analogs. The function kalau you tengok dari sini this is the one that increase uveoscleral outflow. The other medication dia akan reduce the aqueous humor production, means that dia tutup pipe tu lah. Macam prostaglandin ni dia increase the uveoscleral outflow, which is if you still remember during the earlier presentation tadi, I dah cerita pasal unconventional pathway. So dia try to maximize the 30% of outflow. Function of the unconventional pathway itu dia maximize 30%, sebab the conventional pathway itu dah kurang kan. So dia kena maximize. So this is the function of prostaglandin analogs. But prostaglandin analogs is actually a pro-inflammatory mediators. So dia punya side effects include increased pigmentation of iris and lashes, hypertrichosis, maknanya bulu mata you panjang lah. Dia boleh jadi panjang, hitam dan panjang. Tapi kalau pakai sebelah mata je, jadi pelik pula, sebelah panjang, sebelah pendek kan. Blurred vision, vision sometimes jadi a bit blurred. Conjunctival tu hyperemia, means that dia merah. Because kenapa? I cakap tadi, it is a pro-inflammatory mediator. So dia boleh stimulate inflammation. That's why the vessels tu akan dilated dan you nampak conjunctiva you jadi merah. Reactivation of herpes keratitis, CME itu central macular edema, ataupun enterouveitis. Uveitis itu inflammation of the uveal tissue. So it can trigger inflammation lah, because dia pro-inflammatory mediators. For example, the examples of medication is Zalatan, Travatan, and Lumigan. So the second medication, beta blocker, as I mentioned before, kata selain daripada prostaglandin analog, semua medication yang lain dia akan try to decrease aqueous humor production. Tapi in beta blocker, you need to be a bit cautious because it can cause bradycardia, bronchospasm, heart block, sometimes in a patient with allergic ataupun ada asthma. So we try to avoid this medication in that group of patient. Tapi of course there is a way ataupun cara untuk reduce the risk, but still it can enter the circulation and cause all these side effects. Alpha-2 adrenergic agonist decrease aqueous production and as well as decrease episcleral venous pressure by dilating the vessels, reduce the outflow, increase the outflow. So the side effects as mentioned there, carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. This is a inhibitor for the enzyme carbonic anhydrase, which produce the aqueous at the ciliary epithelium. So it also decrease aqueous production. Side effects as mentioned there, acidosis, hirsutism, dekat situ lah you boleh baca. Usually we use topical dorzolamide, rizolamide, but this medication also come in a systemic form, which is the acetazolamide ataupun Diamox, which can be given orally or intravenously. Okay, that's all. Any question? Ada soalan? Yeah. Yes, Ibrahim. Pardon? What normal? The angle? Yeah, that's why I said you need to use the gonioscopy mirror. Even though we are using a slit lamp, we still use the gonioscopy mirror. At the same time, macam kita guna if you remember the lens that we use to look at the fundus by using the slit lamp, we use the small lens there in the clinic to look at the fundus. When we want to look at the angle, we use a gonio lamp, but we're still using the slit lamp. All right, sure. Any other question? No, lapar dah. Everybody want to go to Pasar Ramadan? Ada question lain? Tak ada. If you don't have any other question, you can always we can end our session now. But if you have any other question, you can always ask me ataupun any other lecturer in the clinics, ataupun you can always email us ataupun WhatsApp us. Okay.
I think that's okay, Doctor.
All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.